we're with John Souers, Client Relations Manager at Yellowstone Landscape. John's going to give us some insight on what Community Association board members should expect when they're looking to hire a landscape company.
I've never hired a landscape company. And I think that sometimes my perspective is not a bad perspective because there are board members that come into the community association world that have also never done this stuff. Let's say I'm a brand new board member. I'm in charge of putting together the committee for the landscaping. What should I expect? What should I ask for? Can you give me some tips on how to get started with maybe looking for the proper landscape company for my community?
Yeah, great question, Carrie. First and foremost, Yellowstone actually offers generalized RFP, request for proposal template that we would be happy to work with property managers because we realize sometimes that is something that can be a little ambiguous, is not coming from our industry. So first and foremost, the best thing they could do is look for what we call the request for proposals, the RFP, and whether it's the board or the property manager or a combination of both, and sometimes it's a landscape committee, they should set parameters at what they're looking for with specifications, because obviously it is a service related industry and that can vary the price point quite a bit by how many times they're looking to have certain services done. Everything from number of mowing services to number of fertilizations they want on the property. Some communities want 52 weeks a year service, for people portering and things of that nature. That should really try to be spelled out as best as possible in the RFP. So that way, whether they're having proposals from, 3 or 4 companies or they're getting them from 7 or 8, it should be relatively apples to apples.
Okay. They're going to make their own little diagram of the areas that they're concerned about. They're going to give you the plot plan of the community. And they're going to say, these are the common areas that we're responsible for taking care of, obviously, because I know some communities have little backyard areas that they don't want the landscaping companies to get involved with because it's the unit owner's responsibility. They're going to tell you, we want to do, I know you do a lot of service, but they're going to say, hey, you know what? We want a nice floral entrance. Where do we start?
Well, and that's a great question. A lot of it is going to start with what they already have existing. When you mentioned, with the little backyards and so forth, a lot of times, and you did touch on a map. So depending on the size of a community, if it's a smaller community, maybe let's say a townhome community that's one road in and out with a cul-de-sac at the end, usually pretty self-explanatory as to what is going to be covered in the landscape maintenance. But if it's a large community or larger with multiple areas, definitely something. The map is a huge key component because the incumbent may know all those areas, but other folks and gals coming in, we're not going to know all of these little areas and we may not capture them accurately or correctly. So that's a huge component as part of the RFP is the map. The other aspect is depending on the size of the community, we would recommend, I get it with COVID, that may not always be ideal right now, but to do an on-site meeting and do what we call a pre-bid meeting so that they're all on the same page. It gives everybody an opportunity to kind of, look around the property, ask any questions while everyone's present. So again, everyone's on the same page. And back to your question on as far as if they wanted to put in color or flowers up at the entrance. The first thing we're going to start off with on that is, hey, what's the infrastructure? So do they even have irrigation up there to support flowers? And if they don't have irrigation up there, we can certainly look into putting irrigation in, but it's going to be steps to that process. Then the next part of that is going to be, okay, there's irrigation in that area. It may need some modification or some tweaks, but then we're going to have to actually create the annual bed, with potting soil and wherever that's going to be and deem the size of it. And then from there, it's a matter of the community really just picking what kind of color schemes they want by, seasonality. Obviously there's different annuals that flourish in different times of the year. So that's usually, a quarterly rotation. So every 3 months, those will get rotated out.
So you could go in and say, well, this area right here gets so much sunlight throughout the day. So these types of flowers or plants would be better there. Here's your option. Do you show them images of the plants and say these, or do you draw? How does that? I've seen some where they get really specific and they say this is what it would look like.
Yeah, we have generalized pictures of everything, from coleus to dianthus to whatever type of, Dusty Miller, what type of annuals they'd be looking for. Again, by seasonality, we actually even have a hard copy book that it's a little antiquated since everything now is on computer, but that we could actually go through and show them as well to give them some ideas. Some of that, we're going to give them some of our professional recommendations, the term right plant, right place. A lot of times we may find that if they have a big deer population, there's certain
I didn't
animals
think
that we're
about
going to say,
that.
hey, stay away from that because the deer come in every night and eat them. We have some communities that have water features. And if the water features near the annual bed and it's chlorinated water, it's splashing. That's not always a good combination with the flowers and chlorinated water. So we may recommend to move that or go with a different type of a plant and so forth. So there's a lot of little things that go into it to make it a successful program.